So just to go over a little bit of what we'll do this morning. It's not this morning. This is what happens. I don't know what day of the week it is. I don't know what time it is lately. Anyhow, so I'll go over a little bit of introducing myself and getting a feel for who is here with us today. And then we'll dig into big feelings and the feeling behavior link. I'll briefly go over the social emotional learning competencies and what sort of the goal of today's webinar will be, as well as some helpful ways to emotion coach. And all the tools that I'm going to give you today are going to be things that you can do virtually, since that's our option right now. And we'll continue to dig into tools that can help us process feelings and support kids with the social emotional learning. And then if time permits, I'll give you a couple extra tools. It's sort of the more higher level deeper digging Kimochis tools as time permits. And then will show you, I'll actually share my screen and walk you through how to access all of the free Kimochis resources that are available so that you can do all of the strategies that I'm going to suggest that you can do virtually with your students and families and colleagues. So, and then we will wrap up with some Q&A, and also Leahy will give you a poll to just get your feedback on today's session, and then get a little feedback on any other supports you might need that the UC Berkeley PD program can put together for you. So that's what today will be about. So now I'm going to move over to number 4 in our handout. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself, just an abbreviated version so we can dig into the tools. So I started my career in education as an elementary school teacher, and loved that work, and was particularly passionate about the kids who had the greatest needs. And so long story short, returned to graduate school at UC Berkeley at the Graduate School of Education and got my PhD in school psychology. And so I finished that in 2010. So that's me at my graduation with my oldest, who is 9 now. And I also have a 6-year-old. And so most of my career has been practicing part-time as a school psychologist, and then part-time doing some variety of education consulting type of work. And so I continue to do that. And about 4 years ago, you can see me over there on the right hand picture on page 4 with some Kimochis tools. But I've been using Kimochis in practice for about 9 years. And then about 4 years ago, I became a Kimochi certified trainer. So I've had the pleasure of training folks like yourself all over the Bay Area and virtually. So I am excited to share several of those tools with you today so that you can use those in your work that is unique right now in what we're doing. So, and I'm just going to name it. That's a tool that we practice with Kimochis. We just name our feelings. And I will tell you that even though I've done a ton of things virtually before and a ton of workshops with hundreds of people in a room, there is something unique about doing these things on Zoom with a lot of people. So I'm just going to name it that I do feel a little nervous. So, and I'm putting my brave in front as I navigate that. And so you can see my nervous pillow here, and in Kimochis, we talk about putting our brave in front of some of our hard to have feelings. And I want to name that too, because I think that several of you may be having some of that same experience. You're very comfortable running a whole classroom or a whole school-wide assembly or whatever the case may be, but doing some of this work on a Zoom call or some type of virtual call may bring up some other feelings for you. So just sharing that in case that that connection with my experience resonates with you at all and can connect with some of what you're feeling. So just naming that as well. All right, so moving along to a little bit about all of you. So, and all my questions for you are on page 5 of the handout. So I am feeling curious about all of you in terms of your location, wherever you are in terms of city, state, whatever, country, what your role is in school typically, what your familiarity with Kimochis is. Are you brand new to it? Have you never heard of it? Do you use it? Do you have the materials? Have you been trained? And then also just in terms of your current situation, anything else you want to tell me about your what you're doing. Maybe you're running virtual lessons, whatever the case may be. So go ahead and answer those questions. You can do it in a one package deal in the chat box for me, just so that we can get a feel for who's here. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Daniel. I see some familiar faces out there, which is fantastic. And I'm so excited for all the new faces. All right, so we've got a school psychologist from Santa Cruz County. Emily is from Durham, North Carolina, school social worker. Great, new to Kimochis, great. I'll give you all the details. Oh, it's going fast. Dana in San Francisco, teacher librarian. Wow, awesome. So no experience with Kimochis. I'll be going over all the good stuff then. Shannon, education specialist, K4 in Oakland. And yeah, Leahy just dropped the handout again for those of you who need it. Thank you, Leahy. Jiang, education consultant based in the Bay Area, work with local schools and the UN's World Bank Ed projects. Thank you for all of you for coming. So exciting to see the full range of folks. Regina in Emeryville, third grade teacher. New, starting distance learning teaching. Yeah, I'm on week 3, for just to give you a heads up for me. So I've had a fair amount of time to think about this. Karina from Oakland, language teacher, new at home and virtually supporting students. Sarah, kindergarten teacher, San Bruno, first time learning about Kimochis, rolling with the punches, distance learning. Yes, we all are. Catherine, we got a preschool teacher. Crystal, middle school drama in Foster City, never heard of Kimochis and working on distance learning. And hi, Catherine. Solana from San Luis Obispo, elementary school counselor. We've got Serene in Santa Rosa. Nonprofit, serving 14 to 24-year-olds with case management, career exploration, and work readiness. Awesome. So much, such a range of folks in the group. We have, oh, Jenny, we have a few Gate Pass inclusive team here. Whole team, awesome. Dr. Fuentes, currently in Phoenix, Arizona, working at home counseling and social emotional. Kelsey, teaching kindergarten in Maryland. This week you made contact with families and students via phone and now getting trained on online learning. So start after this week. Okay. Another one from Durham, North Carolina, teacher Jacob. Angelique, teacher in pre-K in Burlingame at Gate Path. Oh, there's the other Gate Path folks. Jen, 6th grade bilingual teacher in Hayward. Okay. Starting online distance learning. Teresa in Lodi, California, school psych. Oh, so you've heard of Kimochis, it's a little familiarity, awesome. Jenny from Phoenix, special ed preschool teacher. Awesome. Yes, and make sure for all of you, you can chat individually to people, but make sure if you want to be able to see the chat box that we're all doing it together, make sure you have everyone selected in the chat section, so that way you can see what all the responses are. 3rd grade bilingual teacher. Okay, lots of responses I see, so I'm gonna go faster so we can dig into the tools. Oh, in grad school to become an administrator. Okay, more preschool teachers. In Burlingame, teacher on special assignment, SFUSD. Okay, so a little bit of Kimochis folks in here. Private school in Daly City, math specialist, 2nd grade teacher. Oh, and a program called CASA. I wonder if it's the one I know. All right, some people doing some distance learning. All right, school counselor, lots of Durham, North Carolina folks represented today. School psychologist intern. Oh, hi, Julie. I know Julie from before. School psych intern in San Jose. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do lots of virtual tools today. Working on daily 40-minute lessons via Zoom. Okay, so that's great to know, so then I can give you feedback in terms of that. Psychologist from Elk Grove. UC Berkeley alumni, current school psych in Orinda, inclusion teacher at Gate Path. Okay, early childhood SPED. Okay, great. So range of familiarity. Okay, I think I've seen most of the things, but if I missed, I'm going as my chat's got lots of things in there. I can't tell how many people are in here right now. Oh, 49, there we go. That's why I'm going through. Okay, I think, oh, Fremont Diagnostic Center, school psych. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Oh, and a school nurse. Okay, so I'm a substitute teacher in public or private schools in Pittsburgh and Antioch. Okay, so we've got a full range of folks. That kind of gives me a heads up on terms of how to give some tips and feedback as I go through with all these tools. So yes, I'm so grateful that all of you are here. So as I go over to page 6 in our handout, the first thing I just want to talk about is big feelings. So I want you to type in the chat, what big feelings are your students having right now, colleagues, families, you, what big feelings are sort of resonating and common right now? Fear, stress, anxiety, stress, loss of connection, nervousness, anticipation as in what's next, uncertainty, anxiety times 100, uncertainty, overwhelm, confused, frustration, resilient, confusion, stressed, grateful, old traumas getting triggered, concerned but hopeful, creative, anxiety, struggling with change, anxiety. You see lots of common threads here, struggling. Hopelessness, yeah. So many of these big feelings are common threads, and that's true for our students, for the families we work with, for our colleagues, for ourselves perhaps. There's such a full range of the human experience right now in terms of all the big feelings that are being felt by everyone that we're working with and ourselves and in our homes, and yeah, some other things, waves of hope, some like waves of hopefulness and then hopelessness, yes, and a lot of that emotional roller coaster that's going on. Worry is another thing. And so one thing, as we name all the feelings and all the big feelings that are being experienced right now for our students, for ourselves, for everyone we're working with, is just the complexity of it all. So if I were to show you, I'm going to show you some feelings right now. And one person said hopeful, because there may be some positive feelings interspersed with these hard to have feelings. I'm going to just hold up a little visual to help us understand sort of that and to really capture that, because one thing that's really big with Kimochis is that feelings aren't typically just super simple in terms of it's not like I'm just stressed. Usually it's a little bit more complex. So I'm going to hold up a couple feelings to capture that. So I've got frustrated here, I've got my scared feeling here, and I've got hopeful here. And this may be what I'm holding inside of me in any one given time, or it may be way more complex than that. And so it's really helpful to help our students or anyone we're working with, for them to understand that it's okay for all of these feelings to be happening, no matter how many there are, no matter how many there are at the time, no matter how these waves are going, that we want our students, our families to understand that all feelings are valid, all feelings are normal in this situation. Even though this whole situation is our new normal, it's a very strange situation we're in. And so all feelings are totally valid in this situation. All feelings are always valid in any situation. And we of course need to reassure our families and our kids that all feelings are valid and normal in this situation. And it's really important when we're working with students that we remind them of this message, because they actually may be in homes or in families where that may not be the common perspective. So much of society, so much of what is a common belief system is that not all feelings are okay, that being sad is not allowed or something like that. And so it's really important to be the person, to be the one who holds space for our kids in allowing all the feelings and reminding them of that when you meet with me, I want you to know that you can tell me about any feelings. All of these are valid. All of these are normal. So that's an important message to give to kids. Some other things in terms of how feelings work that it's important to teach kids or remind them of, depending on what you've given messages to before, is that everyone has feelings. So giving that message, everyone has feelings. If you're having these big feelings, you are not alone. Everyone has them. feelings come and they go. They are not going to last forever. They may last for a long time, but they're not going to last forever. They are not who we are. They are something that we have, that we experience through sensations in our body, but they do come and they go. We also want to tell kids that there are two types of feelings, in the sense that there are feelings that our bodies like to have and feelings that our bodies do not like to have. And with Kimochis, we always want to make it really clear that we don't tell kids that these are good feelings and bad feelings, because there are no bad feelings. Instead, Kimochis, we often call them our positive feelings, or our easy to have feelings, like feelings our bodies like to have. And then we have the feelings that we call our hard to have feelings, or sometimes people call them our upset feelings, but they're not bad. They're there for a reason. They're giving us messages. So another thing that we want to teach kids about feelings is that everybody needs help with their feelings. Everybody needs tools to help with their feelings. So even if, like, say, one person in your family, when they feel stressed, maybe they don't react as much, that doesn't mean that they don't need help or need tools. What that means is that they're actually probably using a tool. They're using calm down breaths, or they're using positive self-talk. Sometimes we can't see what people are doing, or it might not be verbalized to us, but really in reality, people who are managing their feelings, they're all using tools, and everybody needs help. Everybody needs tools, and everyone's going to make some mistakes sometimes. So I'll talk about that in a little bit too. And I see a question here about, did Inside Out, the movie, draw from Kimochis? You're having a connection with the multicolored spheres. Actually, Kimochis, I believe, came out before the Inside Out movie came out, but it actually was invented by Nina Rappaport-Rowan, who is actually an animator. She is the person who actually brought Despicable Me, you know, the Minions, to Hollywood. She is an Oscar award-winning producer. So she is the one who invented Kimochis, and then she collaborated with some speech and language pathologists who specialize in communication and social emotional learning. They wrote the curriculum and came up with all the tools that go with it. And she was actually, there, thanks to sharing the links. So yes, but you can see the animation flair to them, and because Nina, who invented them, really understands that kids connect to characters and stories, and you'll see that throughout. But they work for all ages. I work with these with all, preschool through 12th grade and even adults. So digging in a little deeper. So heading over to page 7 in our handout, we're going to talk a little bit about the feeling behavior link. So I'm just going to use the scared feeling as an example, because a lot of you said anxiety as a big feeling that a lot of people are experiencing right now. And I just want you to think for a little bit about your students. And I want you to think about, if your students are feeling scared, what behaviors might they exhibit? What might they say? What might they do? And you can guess what they might say and do at home, or maybe you've talked to families and you know a little bit about what families are reporting on, or maybe there's kids in your house you can speak to. So go ahead and type in the chat what behaviors your students might exhibit when they're feeling scared. Hiding under furniture, withdrawal. Flight, aggression, slamming doors, eloping the classroom, throwing, freezing, aggressive behavior towards peers, or opting out, crying, teens not going to school, difficulty listening, crying, fighting with others, avoiding work. Yeah. Sometimes no behavior change. Inaction, yeah, like that freezing, regression, neediness. Yeah. So many behaviors are going to be present both with our students. And then I could go through the same question and ask you what behaviors are going to be exhibited by families, by parents when they feel scared. What maybe is the same for you or for colleagues. We go through the same exercise. Some other ones, isolating themselves, flight, fleeing, walking out, being avoidant. Yeah. Those are all these behaviors that are going to be exhibited when we might have a feeling. And so really with Kimochis, what we believe is that all feelings, feelings fuel behavior. So all behavior is communication. So it can be really helpful for whatever is going on, say a behavior is that kids are being aggressive or avoiding work or whatever the case may be. And it's really important for us to get really curious and put our curious in front and really think about what is this behavior communicating, because kids and adults are not doing these behaviors to be mean, to pick on someone, to make people's lives worse. Basically what those behaviors are saying is, hey, I need help. I am having these big, giant feelings and I don't yet know what to do with them. Or maybe I did know what to do with them a little bit before, but now they're feeling so big and gigantic that I'm struggling with them again, or this is a new situation I'm in, or whatever it is. So working with families, and also just working with kids, you can, question them about what may be going on for them and getting curious with them around what feelings are fueling those behaviors, because that can bring in some more compassion. That can bring in the empathy. That allows us to be like, oh, it's like when my 6-year-old was having some epic meltdowns in the first few days of, being home and doing this distance learning thing and all of that, that really, it was easy for me to feel frustrated by those behaviors. And I, of course, I had every right to feel frustrated. My feelings were valid around that. And it was important for me to get curious about what was going on for him. Like clearly this whole situation is bothersome, but what was it about the situation that was really contributing to his big feelings? Because then that allows me to get some movement and figure out where I can support, and then help provide some tools for him to manage those feelings. So helping families get curious is really important, and helping kids get curious. So that's one piece of the puzzle. And then we also want to do that for ourselves. So if we're having a hard time, we can get curious about what's going on for ourselves, and really allowing ourselves to feel whatever is going on, and getting curious about that. And the other feeling that's important to put in front, like I said, because the curiosity then fuels that compassion, is just this loved feeling. Loved feelings and compassionate feelings are really the solution to most everything around feelings. Holding space for kids, holding space for families, holding space for ourselves, that and colleagues really is important as we navigate all the full range of feelings that are going on for everyone right now. So that's just something to really keep in mind, this feeling behavior link. And so for the rest of the time together, I'm going to go through some other strategies to help kids process their feelings. You can think about helping kids know that even though feelings may fuel some problematic behaviors, some more challenging behaviors, when we learn tools, the beauty of that is that then when we're having a feeling, we can start to bring up these tools and use these to help us manage these feelings. So moving on to page 8 in our handout, that is where the social emotional learning piece comes in. So it's really the 4th R. So it is the relationships piece. And CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic and Social and Emotional Learning, it's a national organization. They have a ton of resources I encourage you to check out down the road if you have time. They break it down into 5 competencies for social emotional learning. So these are self-awareness, so noticing what I am feeling in my body, and I'm going to simplify these. Self-management, being able to manage my emotions with care and kindness. Social awareness, so I can look at your faces and your body language and figure out what's going on for you, and how can I respond accordingly. And then relationships, so really, and I feel like relationships encompasses all of these competencies. Thank you, Leahy, for sharing that link. And so relationships really has to do with everything in terms of our interactions with people. So it has to do a lot with navigating conflict, and also just the nurturing of those positive relationships. And then the last one is really responsible decision making, no matter how hard things may be. So it's related to our morality and ethics and things like that. So I'm going to dig into some tools today that will help you in supporting across these competencies. And Kimochis really believes that it's ideal for us to be very intentional with our social emotional learning, so that we give kids tools with their social emotional learning. And then ideally when we're in a classroom, so when we do return to school, it's ideal too to have this embedded as part of our environment all day long, because kids can really benefit from support with this throughout their days. And the tools that we'll talk about, you can encourage your students to really continue to use these even when you're not on a call with them. So, so that's a little bit about that. And more than ever, I'm a big believer in relationships and social emotional learning as the foundation of all other areas of kids learning anyhow. And then I will say that I think this is even more important right now than ever before. Without that relationship piece, without this emotional piece, the other learning is not going to happen nearly as well. And the research from Castle shows consistently that kids do better with things, with a full range of things, but with academics when we really support the social emotional learning. And again, I think this is more important than ever right now. So moving along to page 9 in our handout, I'm going to give you some tools to helpful ways to talk about feelings when you're interacting with your students. So in thinking about this scared feeling here, checking in with yourself right now and sort of, and I'll say this can be like scared and anxiety and things like that. For anyone who's willing to show on their camera or share in the chat, I'm going to ask you to show me with your hands, or you can say small, medium, big in the chat. How small or big is your scared feeling right now? What would you say the size of your feeling is right now? Okay, so, and this gross motor movement can be a really helpful, powerful thing for you to do with your kids, with your students at the start of a class meeting or the one-on-one call, or to encourage your families to check in with the kids, because even when our verbal skills start to shut down a bit, because our brains perhaps are hijacked by some of these big feelings, medium, 5 out of 10. Okay, so we got some more sharing. There's something about this gross motor movement that can help kids communicate that more powerfully. So, and then the other thing about doing this, yeah, and you can also do a scale with their fingers. Yeah, with bigger kids, they can show with like 1 to 10, absolutely. So with that, we can also help kids understand that feelings come and go. So if my scared is like this, or a kid tells you it's like this big, like my hands don't get that big, or it's like they're doing this for their 10-point scale, then we can talk about, well, we can think about some tools that can maybe make it a little bit smaller. I never oversell. I never tell kids that I'm going to make their scared go away, but I say, like, let's brainstorm some tools and think about some things that can maybe provide a little bit of relief. And at the end of, say, your meeting with them, you can check in again and say, like, okay, show me where your scared is now, or show me on your 10-point scale where you are now. And then that can help inform us if what we're doing is working, or if we need to brainstorm some other tools. So, or if there's certain kids we need to reach out to with more support. So that's to give, oh, you like the honesty of, I can't promise to make your scared go away. Absolutely, we can't make their scared go away. So we have to just say, you know, it might give you a little bit of relief. So that's the important thing with size. And with size too, so if like something like scared, a hard to have feeling, we hope that it's going to get a little smaller. But if a kid who you are running across who's feeling depressed and their happy is like this, then maybe what we're actually doing is we're trying to figure out some tools that's going to make it grow a little bit bigger. So you can keep that in mind. The next tool is number 2 is just practice. So this is going to be relevant more than ever before. This is just really aligned with a growth mindset and just an awareness, bringing that awareness to kids that even if you maybe feel scared at school sometimes and you use tools, but maybe now you're on a Zoom call. So you're scared alone is just like this big. My daughter actually told me on the first few Zooms that she went on for her class meeting, she said afterwards when she was done, she said, "Mom, my heart is racing the entire time. I'm so nervous on those calls." And I said, okay, well, well, you know, the good news is that we have an opportunity to practice. Practice makes better. Practice does not make perfect. I'm not going to guarantee that that's going to go away, but we can practice these tools. And so just reminding kids that we have to practice managing our feelings. It's not something that's just going to come easily for people. So that's the other thing. Number 3 is tools. I've kind of already mentioned this one, but just basically tools are things that help. So just encouraging kids to understand that there are things that can help. It might not might make your scare go entirely away, like I said, but hopefully we can figure out some tools that will work for you that's going to make it a little bit better. Habit is one that I wanted to share because there is an interesting and unique opportunity in this whole thing in terms of shifting some of the habits that we have as educators, that kids may have, that families may have, and most people are feeling a little bit in crisis, of course, but so often our world is moving so fast that we may speed through things, and some of these may not be relevant for the kids you work with. But so for example, I'm going to give you one from my family. We're usually pretty busy, and with having more time all together, I will say that we've shifted a little bit of our habits around meeting together as a family and having discussions about things. We've shifted, so I do a lot of emotion coaching at my house, as you can imagine, as a Kimochis person. And sometimes it feels even rushed for me because I've got to get to whatever I got to get to. And there is an opportunity in my family right now. We've been working on changing some of our habits around taking time to really work through whatever scenarios we're going through. So if we, like my little boy, when he had a meltdown, I really took the time to really go through all the steps that I'm going to teach you as we go through all the processing steps. And so we're kind of reshifting our habits a bit. So that's just, I'm just throwing that out there. And the reason we use habit with Kimochis is because the word skill has some deficit model connotation to it. It's like you have it or you don't, you can't, or you can. Like oftentimes people say like that kid's bad or not, as opposed to any behaviors are just habits. So it's like if I feel frustrated, I might have a habit of yelling, but it's just an unhelpful habit that I can unlearn. Again, this is very growth mindset. So if I'm feeling frustrated, I can work on developing a new habit. So maybe instead I communicate by saying, hey, I'm feeling frustrated. So whatever the case may be. So that's that one. Story is just this idea of shifting with our kids. Instead of saying, what are you feeling? Or why are you feeling that? And sort of those WH questions, which can put a lot of pressure on, we can shift to saying to kids, tell me your story. And if, tell me a feeling that might be going on for you, and then tell me a story about that feeling. So tell me the story of your scared feeling. And then you can, instead of again asking these WH questions, ask things like, is there more to the story? What would you like to change in that story? If you could write the next chapter, what would you like it to look like? So that we empower kids to see some authorship over their stories. Now, most of the kids I work with live in pretty extreme poverty, and they may not be having some stories that they're thrilled with right now in any way, shape, or form. But still there are parts of the story that can be parts that are filled with hope and resilience, because you have an opportunity to work with them and with their family. And so you can bring some hope and resilience to their story. Thank you for the shares in the comments. So just helping kids see some power to that. And so it's like, okay, so you did end up hitting your brother and sister. If your student tells you that, okay, so how could we rewrite the story, or how do you want the next chapter to go, can be powerful tools for kids. And then the last thing is just mistakes in the Kimochis redo. I talked about this a little bit, but everybody makes mistakes with how they handle their feelings. And again, validating that that's normal is really important. And then with Kimochis, we have the Kimochis redo. So what that means is it's not a punishment, it's not a consequence, it's redoing, communicating how we communicate that feeling. So if I yelled at my kids, which I have in the 3 weeks I've been home, my redo looks like, in my case, I do apologize, but it really is looking like, you know what, let me try that again. I was feeling really frustrated that you guys, blah, 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 blah. I need you guys to whatever it is. Or sometimes maybe I just forgot to get their attention in the first place. And so I felt ignored, but really it wasn't their fault. It was my fault because I hadn't taken the time to get their attention first. So it's communicating again with more kindness and care. And that applies to ourselves too. So if we beat ourselves up, taking a redo can look like communicating with ourselves with more care and kindness for the second go around. Can you write the steps for how to tell your story? I will make a note for myself and I will send that, I'll have Leahy send that out in the recap that I'm sure there'll be an email that goes out. Yeah. All right, so moving on to page 10. So those, and before we do that, real quick, in the chat, write down of those on page 9 there. I kind of gave you a lot of different ideas for helpful tools to talk about feelings when you check in with your kids, but put in the chat, which one resonated with you? Which one do you want to start using right away with your students or families or colleagues? Size, story, size and story, habit, story. I don't have the handouts. They're linked above. Habit, story, redo, story, and practice. Name it. And one before it. Mistakes in the redo. Size, yeah. Story, size. I'm asking you guys to do this because I want your brain to really lock it in what you're going to use moving forward. Story, size, story. So everyone, lots of people like the size and the story. Those are always big hits. Yeah, telling stories, especially for those kids who have difficulties talking about their feelings. Yeah, it's just a shift for kids. It doesn't feel as demanding. Yeah, absolutely. So lots of people like that. All right, so moving along to some feeling check-ins on page 10. So I'm gonna, because of course we want to check in with feelings with our kids, and I just gave you some ideas to talk about them. But I'm going to show you some tools that you can use to help with that. So, and at the end, I'm going to show you how to get these handouts. I'm going to show you. So one thing is that you can use this feelings poster from Kimochis that is free. It's currently available in English and Spanish. And what Kimochi said is that if you were to send in these feeling words in any other language, they will then input it into the poster for you in any language you want for your students. So just feel free to, I'll put my email in the follow-up information too, and you can reach out to me and I'll make sure that Kimochis gets that to you for any other languages, okay? So one thing is once you get this and you download it from kimochis.com, again, I'll put all this in the links, you can actually do a screen share with this so that kids can have all of these feelings to pull from. So, because really most kids in their emotional vocabulary, they have like 3 to 5 words. Even big kids, it's like they have happy, sad, mad, matter, and maddest. Those are, it's like most people, it's like have a pretty limited vocabulary. And the more we can expand that vocabulary, the more that actually provides relief to us. The more we can name very specific feelings. Dr. Dan Siegel says you have to name it to tame it. So you can do a screen share, and then because with Kimochis, we do encourage a lot of showing, and you guys obviously don't have the feeling pillows with you, but if you do a screen share, you can have kids do charades with you. You can have them give you clues, like this is what's going on, and then you can guess. So you can make a game of it. You can make it more fun and interactive. You can also, if they do have well, 2 things. If they do have access to internet and a printer, they can also print it themselves and then cut them out, so then they can have little feelings that they can play with and hold up for you, or they could hold it up and point to the one, because there is something powerful for kids who when they're having a lot of big emotions, it's a lot easier to communicate by pointing, by showing, than it is by having to talk. Even the verbal parts of our the verbal processing parts of our brains can they're typically not as efficient. Leahy, you can help me out with this if I'm not saying this correctly. I know you're a trauma-informed specialist, but they typically don't work as well when we're triggered with trauma. So the more we can minimize the linguistic demands on kids and adults and colleagues, the better it is for them to be able to actually communicate what is going on for them. So this is a way for them to show. And if they don't have a printer, what you can do is that you can have this on their shared screen, and then they can grab any old paper and pencil and they can draw it for you and show it up on their screen. They could also, of course, write it in. So that's one thing they could do. Another one that they, if you have 3 to 6-year-olds, because I know I had a lot of preschool teachers in here, this is also on the Kimochis.com page, because that big poster is too overwhelming. And so this one is going to be a much more simplified version for the little ones to go through or to sit with their families with. So that's on there as well. And then this is also on the Kimochis.com main page. And so kids can also just draw whatever feelings there are. And they can even take this, if they can print it or not, they can just draw a little circle for you. And they can even have a journal. The big kids, I would suggest them practicing writing in their journal about what's going on for them. But the little ones, they can draw. So you can say, okay, maybe I'm not going to see you for a week. Okay, but while we're apart, why don't you, every time you have a big feeling that you want to tell me about, go to your special paper and write down or draw a picture of whatever you're feeling. And then they can check in with you the next time they see you. And if they don't get a chance to, that's totally fine too. They can just sit in the moment and think about what's going on for them in that moment or what's been coming up. But these are just some ways, some possibilities. Yeah, so journals can really be helpful. And just as a reminder, whatever you check in, whenever kids communicate about what they're feeling, then you can check in about the size, you can do the storytelling, all those concepts we just talked about. This is also really important to do feeling check-ins with colleagues. So making sure that, there weren't a lot of administrators in here, but, ask your administrator if you're in a staff meeting, if they're the ones leading it, or if you're the one, if you're just meeting with staff, let's do a check-in with each other. You can use these materials or, but really checking in with one another, because as educators, we have a lot on our plates too. So we really need to also make sure that foundation is being supported before we can then do our best work in terms of any other instruction with kids. So doing the check-ins there is important. And you can also check in with families in this way. So they could put a poster out together and really share with one another what's going on for them. So in my house, we are doing feeling check-ins at least once a week. We're doing a morning meeting every morning in our house, from Monday to Friday. And so we're doing feeling check-ins, lots of times non-verbally. So at my house, we have the luxury of the pillows, but you can also easily do it with posters, having people put it on their fridge. And again, if they don't have a printer, they can draw them. So practicing it that way, which again, that is a fun way to learn the feeling words too. Making sure I got through all these things. Okay, so the next thing we do in our family meetings is over on page 11. So feeling of the day can be powerful too. So what we're doing is actually, I'm actually having my kids take turns picking their feeling of the day. As a class meeting, what you could do is you could have kids take turns if you're like meeting. I know some teachers are meeting with their kids every day. So that way, so you could easily get through all the kids that way. Otherwise, I might just pick one so that you don't have that scarcity phenomena come up for kids. But when you pick a feeling of the day, what you can do is just really build some awareness around that. Like, what does that feel? So it's like, if it was frustrated, well, what is frustrated? What does it look like in our bodies? What does it look like on our faces? Look at everybody's faces on Zoom. Show me your frustrated faces. Look, everyone's looks a little different, whatever. Tuning into those things. And then if the feeling of the day is a hard to have feeling, you're going to brainstorm together tools to make it better. Like, what's our list of ideas for what we could do when we're feeling frustrated? Or on the flip side, if our feeling, say, is loved or something like that, a positive feeling, what are all the things that we could do as a family or as a class, or what could we do to really build more loved feelings? So really just front loading the possibilities. So for example, at my house, when we talked about mad and we talked about taking calm down breaths, well, lo and behold, of course, somebody got mad later. So then we talked about, oh, I see some mad feelings. Okay, so what could we use? Oh, we could do our calm down breath. Or when those mad feelings then fueled some behaviors that were like meltdowns, then after the fact, once things were totally calm and brains were calm again, we could talk about, okay, so next time, what could we do when we were feeling mad? Remember our list together. So just practicing that. So it's really front loading things. because the more, we're basically priming the brain so that we do raise the odds that kids are gonna be able to pull from those tools. Again, it doesn't make sure, I'm not promising it's gonna work all the time, but it's like we're raising the odds a little bit, and that's, even a little bit of improvement is better. And then some additional things for families, there's additional games for this activity called Feeling Detective on, and some other games that are in the free handouts on Kimochis.com. I'll show you where to get those. But first I want to show you some other things. So I'm going to show you Kimochis soup, which is on page 12 in our handout. So Kimochi soup is just a way of processing with kids. And so you can say, we're going to make Kimochi soup. And with the older kids, people who I know who work with high schoolers, the kids still love this. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it at-home soup. You can call it distance learning soup, virtual meeting soup. If you've got kids who have more of a specific thing, senior year soup, you can do something specific to like a very specific situation. If you work with kids, say, who are going back and forth between two homes, you could call it two-home soup. During this time, whatever you need to process, you can do soup for it. So what that looks like, I'll just say right now, we're gonna do coronavirus soup. So basically what you would do is, if you had the materials, you would say, I'm gonna make coronavirus soup, or we're gonna make coronavirus soup. Tell me all the feelings that you think kids, so if it was kids, like kids in our class might have during this time with coronavirus. And then you can like pop them in the chat even if you want. So kids would like say whatever it is, you know, they're like, oh, sad, scared.
Can you wait for 10 minutes?
Excited, because some kids might say they're excited to not have to go to school, whatever it is. Whatever the feelings go in. And I don't, and you can do this one-on-one, but if you do it in a group, I make it very sort of third-party neutral. I say, tell me all the feelings you think kids in our class might have. So you see, I'm saying that third party, so I don't put pressure on like, because I don't want one kid to say scared, to feel afraid to say scared because they don't want to be like the kid who says scared. We want them to be able to be like, oh yeah, kids in our class might. So you make it very generic and neutral. And then all the feelings go in, okay? And you obviously aren't gonna have it like this, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna print this poster that I showed, and you're gonna cut out the feelings into little squares. And then you're gonna take a plate, it can be a paper plate, it can be a whatever, and you're gonna have tape there ready, and you're gonna help the kids tape it on, or you're gonna tape it on, like whatever the kids tell you, and you're gonna put it on, and you're gonna make soup together. And then you're gonna hold up that soup for everyone, you know, and you can even, you could also do something creative with like a whiteboard and a shared screen, whatever works. And then you're going to talk about how now we're gonna process our soup. And so how you process your soup is then you go through and you ask any kid, you can call on them and you can say, okay, pick one of these, just pick one of these, you know. And so someone's like, oh, uncomfortable. Okay, and so then you say, okay, everybody show me your uncomfortable face. Again, you're just using it to support you. Does anybody want to share a story about uncomfortable feelings? So anybody who is willing can share their stories about uncomfortable feelings. And then they can also, you can say, okay, so now let's think about some top tips that can help us with our uncomfortable feelings. Let's brainstorm what could help with that. And then you open it up to any ideas that people can come up with. Those tools might look like Kimochis tools. It might be like, oh, I could take a calm down breath. It might be something totally different. Like when I feel uncomfortable, I go and I go in my bedroom and I close the door and I go under the covers. If that provides some relief, maybe that's what helps a kid to kind of resettle and kind of, you know, whatever it is. I like to, you know, maybe a kid's like, I like to tell my mom that, whatever, you're basically building capacity as a group. You're brainstorming together to really come up with tools that kids can use. And then ideally at the end, you might ask each kid to pick one tool that you're gonna walk away with trying at the end of this, at the end of making soup. But really helping kids this allows kids to feel that every feeling is valid, that, and that there are tools to help. You can also go through here and talk about, well, what mistakes might people make when they have these feelings? And that's okay too. You know, you're using all the tools I just talked about to then process the feelings. but it's an opportunity to really target something specific. So in this case, we made coronavirus soup, but again, it can be senior year soup, or not finishing the school year with my teacher soup, or whatever it is. So that's soup. I know we're going on time. So moving along, feel free to ask any questions at any point on any of these things. So moving to page 13, to what's on your plate. This is another, it's a little different than what's on your soup, than Kimochi soup. And all of these two things you can do, by the way, as a family. So if a family can either print these and cut them out, or draw them, they can make soup at their house and work together to process these things. And I know some families are not going to do that. Some families are in utter crisis, and this is like, they're not going to be able to do this right now. And some families might be able to do this. So sharing it with those that can or want to. So what's on your plate comes from this idea that we basically have a lot on our plates right now. Everybody does. You do, our kids do, families do, colleagues. So it's the same kind of thing in terms of putting all the feelings on there that are real for us. But what you're going to do is you're going to ask kids to, and they can, instead of putting the printed ones on that are cut up, you can also just have kids write or draw on a plate. Or if they don't have a plate, take a piece of paper and draw a circle on it, and they can put them in there. So in the middle, they put any feelings that have been hard to have, that they wanted to talk about or communicate. So like, for instance, I have cranky, sad, and shy in the middle. It's just an example. And then on the outside, they put any feelings that they've been having that are positive, or positive feelings that they want to have, or they want to get more of. And so the power of this is you can also, once a kid makes it, you can give them this guidance, have them write it, draw it, whatever. Once everyone has their plate, or you can do it one-on-one, then they can point. So point to the feeling that has been hardest for you to have. Point to the feeling that is hard and you feel like you have some tools to help you with. Point to the feeling that is hard to have and you want to ask for help with today. So there's a lot of communication they can do by pointing and showing, rather than having to tell. And then with the positive feelings, we want to help kids see that the positive feelings actually can provide a container and some support for kids with their hard to have feelings. This is true for us too. So, so for example, this loved feeling at the bottom. So like you could say, okay, guess what? I have a ton of loved feelings for you as your teacher, as your counselor, as your school psychologist, whatever it is. And so you can ask them, or you can give them an example and then ask them, how might that loved feeling help make your sad feeling feel supported? So helping them to connect the fact that we can use these positive feelings to support our hard to have feelings. Doesn't mean necessarily those hard to have feelings are going to go away, but it can provide some support. So that's really the beauty of what's on your plate. So that's what's on your plate. I am not gonna, in the interest of time, because I've got 3 minutes, I'm gonna show you guys, for anyone who wants to leave at 5 o'clock, I'm gonna show you where to get stuff on the Kimochis website. And then I'm going to, if for anyone who wants to stick around, I can go through some more stuff. So I'm gonna share my screen here. And while I share my screen too, you can write in the chat so that you make it concrete in your brain. Oh, where is that? Oh, here we go. Go ahead and write in the chat which of the feeling processing tools you feel like you could really, would be very helpful for you in your work. And Leahy, if you can still see the chat, you can share what people found were as helpful. Shoot, hold on. I'm having something.
Plate and soup. Soup is things that would be helpful. The feeling detective, the soup and plate, soup, plate. Some comments that this will be amazing for my family. Soup, plate, feeling detective, plate.
Okay, so lots of good stuff. People feel like they can get. Okay, awesome. Okay, so it's because I got 2 minutes. Now I'm gonna go hop over. So I'm glad everyone feels like they have some tools to walk away with. So right now, hopefully you can see my Kimochi screen. Yes, nod heads. Can people see the Kimochi? Okay, great. All right, so this is kimochis.com. This is the main page. So this is, and make sure when people type it in, they put that S in there, Kimochis, all the way with the S. So once on the main page right now, if you scroll down, these are the main ones that I showed you for people to use. This is the Be a Feeling Detective, the simplified version with this just like 9 feelings. This is the main feeling chart, and this is the one with those blank feelings. Okay, so this is where you, like, if any family, it's like a really simple way to, simple place to go, just go here. Okay, and for you guys as educators, you can access some additional resources. So this is over at Kimochis with that S way.com. Again, we'll send all those links later too. Surely he's putting it in the chat. So over here in free resources, there's some great stuff too. So that I want to show you because you'll have the posters and things like that, the feeling charts, but you'll also have other things that you, more detailed feeling detectives, keys to communication, Kotawazes, and if you go, you can kind of see over here on the right where I'm getting into families, there's some additional things down here for families you can share. There's coloring books, coloring worksheets, things down here that can help families. But there's one other thing in here I really want to show you. So under either the pre-K or the grades 1 to 5, if you go into SOS tools, SOS meaning like challenging things right now, and you hit into there, I'm going to show you what you can access to, because some of you are home and you want to do some social emotional learning stuff and you're like, I don't have anything with me, left it, even if you do have Kimochis, you left it at school. So don't go down to this behaviors at a glance stuff, stick up at this SOS tool section. And if you go into one of these, I'm just going to go into the grades 1 to 5 one right now, but for those of you who teach preschool, go into the preschool section. And these will give you some actual access to the curriculum, like pages in the curriculum. So when you load it, you've got those posters in there again, and you can also, if you prefer to read these in Spanish, you can. But basically for each character, there's 5 main characters. You can see them in the next slide on page 15 in your handout. For each character, they all have different personalities and they all have different behaviors that they kind of struggle with a bit. And so you can scroll down and see all the different ones. And then once you decide whatever one you want help with, and I'm going to scroll down to this one in particular, you then click into whichever tools for them. So Lovey Dove is our character who's pretty easygoing, but worries a lot, but does help people practice optimistic and hopeful thoughts. So when I click in here into Lovey Dove's tools, you actually then can access the lessons. So, so under here, I'm going to go into Choose Hope. And it's actually going to load, it's going to probably, the actual page from the curriculum guide. And so it's got a little lesson ideas for you that you could use with kids. And these things are things you could still modify for your big kids too, for those for those teenagers and even adults. So for example, like it's okay to feel all the hard to have feelings, but we can also look in here, shift kids thinking. So instead of these kids saying, I'm never going to get this right, we can encourage them to practice saying things like, I've done hard things before, so I know I can do hard things again. So giving them some support around things like that can be helpful. So that's just one example. And then over in here, the cool thing too, if you want to get a sneak preview into Kimochi stuff, there's typically these in here, the portal is usually only accessible if you actually have the toolkit, if you have bought the materials, but the company decided to open it up to everyone, so anyone can get in there and you can watch videos, get more handouts if you want to like dig deeper and get a little feel for what Kimochis is about if you want to explore it for the future. So that's sort of all about that. I'm going to stop my share. Before I dig into, because I was going to go over a little bit on the characters, I would for anyone who wants to stay, Leahy, do you want me to do the poll now to close up, and then for anyone who wants to stick around for Q&A and anything extra? Yeah, I see you nodding. Okay, so I'll let you do that. Okay. So thank you for all of you. Feel free to do the closing poll, and then but if you want to stick around, I'll go over a couple more things and answer questions. Oh, someone says, how do I choose more than one in the poll? I don't know that you can. Oh, for the like questions.
Before you do that, I would say just enter additional responses in the chat box and I'll enter them manually.
Thank you. You're welcome, Neva. You're welcome, Vero. Oh, Dana, you just got the Kimochis kids. How exciting. You're welcome, Teresa. You're welcome, Solana. You're welcome, Laura. Yes, all of you be well too. Thanks, everyone. Yes, so there'll be a recording and a recap coming out. Yes. Yeah. Do we see this working well with other SEL curriculums such as zones? Yes, absolutely. A ton of people I train use this with the zones of regulation. People use it with Toolbox. People use it with Ruler. I haven't really found any curriculum that it doesn't work well with. It's people use it with Second Step, Responsive Classroom. I'm not going to go into ton. I'll show you when I share the screen for anyone who sticks around. The tools really just readily go in with the other things, and these Kimochis pillows really just sort of enhance the other things. Like for instance, for zones of regulation, people will take the pillows and then sort them into the different zones. People do all sorts of really cool things with these things. Yeah, thanks to all of you. All right, so is the poll done, or is it okay if I share a screen or that? Okay. All right, so I'm going to share something. Okay, let's see. Oh, hopefully, let's see. Oh, hold on. Let's see if it'll. Okay, hold on. That's not working. Thank you all for bearing with me for a second. Let's see if I can do it this way. Okay, I didn't get the page that I wanted. Okay, so, oh, I'm not gonna, going to the front of the, oh, there we go. Now it's letting me go to it. All right, so two other things I just wanted to mention about some Kimochis tools, because even if you're, you don't have Kimochis or you're not familiar with them, you can use some of these tools to help you in your work with your kids at home. So the Kimochis keys to communication are core to the program. I'm not going to go into these at length right now because I actually have a mini course that you can get if you want, that's half off right now, that's super affordable, to dig into those because I don't have time. It takes about 45 minutes for me to teach all of these. But what I wanted to just point out is that it can be really helpful to teach kids about to really break it down for kids, what is involved in positive communication habits. So really being explicit about that and intentional about teaching that. And so to give you an example, when my family, for our feeling of the day, when we had, we picked, one of my kids had picked happy. And so one of the tools we talked about was using key number 2, using our talking tone of voice instead of our fighting tone of voice as much as possible when we were feeling upset. That would actually have spread more happiness in our family. And so we actually, it's tuning kids into tone of voice, body language, facial expression is really the big take home message to you, because this is one of the things that really is powerful in Kimochis in expanding some of those other SEL programs out there, because most of the other programs don't tune kids into this nonverbal communication piece. And so when we say our I statements or something like that, if I say it but I'm yelling at you, it's not going to be as effective in getting us connected as if I'm able to use a talking tone of voice or some type of kind voice. And because it's not always easy to keep a talking tone of voice, we have alternatives. So for example, we teach serious voice, which is just slowing down our speech when we need to convey seriousness without conveying meanness. So there's all these tools, but what I encourage you is to check out some of the resources in the Kimochis portal, because you can start to learn about some of these tools if you want to bring in these keys to communication in your classroom, like down the road or in your current classroom through virtual learning. And then the characters I wanted to show you, because even if you don't have the characters, you can actually, on the portal, there's a free handout that's like a popsicle stick thing. This one's definitely more for the 5th grade and down crew. I'm gonna just give you some examples of the different characters and what they can help with, because with kids, it's so easy for them to feel like they're all alone in whatever's going on for them. And so by providing a character that has a situation, a personality that might be similar to them, or explaining sort of their situation, it can help us understand ourselves better, and it can help us understand others better, and help us with those interactions better, both with people who are like us and with people who are different from us. So, all right, so I'm going to show you some of these. So Hugtopus is our character who's got a lot of love to give and can struggle with focus and attention, and is the character and who is like, all want to give me a big ol' hug. So Hugtopus, of all the characters, is having the toughest time with the social distancing thing. When Hugtopus sees a neighbor out and about or whatever it is, Hugtopus just wants to like run at them and give them a big giant hug. Hugtopus is also like on the class meetings on Zoom or something like that. Hugtopus is the one who wants to be like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing today? Do you guys want to play later? Even though it's actually time to maybe to listen as part of that class meeting. So with Hugtopus, we can, first of all, just acknowledge to kids that that can be normal. That can be a really normal reaction if you are anything like Hugtopus, if you're feeling any of these things. So again, validating is really important. And then also, because Hugtopus has to practice being silly and like knowing when to be silly, when to be serious, we can encourage the kids who are like Hugtopus to make sure they do a ton of stuff all day that gets their silly moving through them. Because if they don't, then when they're gonna have to sit down and be on Zoom, it's gonna be extra hard, even more challenging than it just is gonna be helpful. So that's Hugtopus, but you're just validating for kids that it can be normal if you're wanting to go run over to your neighbor and play with them. Cloud is our character who can be a bit moody, can be really happy one second and then bam, either sad or mad the next. And Cloud can help kids, again, you can pick, teach kids about these characters, because the character stories are also all online for free on that Kimochis site I just showed you. So you can read those stories to your kids. It can be a fun thing for you to do with, I'd say preschool through 5th grade. Even the big kids, they actually end up really enjoying it. They enjoy thinking about who they're like, who other people are like. So yeah, with Cloud, so I'm gonna grab a feeling. So say Cloud is feeling really mad. So I'm gonna tuck it in. You can't tuck it in on your popsicle sticks, but so you can see how Kimochis works. We can help kids name whatever their feeling is. So we say name it, like I said earlier. So that can be important for your feeling check-ins, but also we can help kids understand that we can be mindful of our feelings. We can just notice it and name it rather than thinking it's a part of us. This mad is not a part of Cloud. Cloud can notice the storm that is going on, notice it, name it, and realize that the storm is going to pass at some point. That's really from a mindfulness perspective. That mad's not going to stick around forever. So that's a piece of the puzzle that can be helpful for kids with that one. Bug is the character who can be real slow to warm up and can struggle with transitions and change. Also is very tuned in and notices all the details. So, and in some ways bugs are enjoying some of this time home, probably because Bug's introverted. At the same time, this is a lot of change. Having to go on a screen to do class meetings or anything like that can feel very uncomfortable for Bug. So even though Bug is feeling, say for instance, scared, Bug can help kids practice positive self-talk. So Bug says things like, okay, I can do hard things, I've got this. So helping kids to, and you're not gonna pull out the wings like Bug does at your house without an actual character, but you can just talk about how really it's like a caterpillar, how they transform and how they get their wings out is by one tool is using positive self-talk. So instead of like when I am trying to learn a lesson through a computer screen and I'm like, math is stupid, this is too hard, it can be more helpful to say, I'm super frustrated and I can ask for help or something like that. That is a form of positive self-talk too. So that's something that's helpful. Kat is our character who's a real leader, but and knows got a lot of big ideas. So the cats that you work with are probably having a really hard time with the fact that a lot of other people are telling them what to do. Like the teacher's saying to do this, my parents are saying to do this, my siblings are wanting to play this way, and Kat wants it the way Kat wants it. And so because when Kat doesn't get their way, then Kat sometimes then comes across as bossy and can say hurtful things. So reminding kids that that might happen right now sometimes. And then Kat reminds us that you can see in the picture on the slide, the cat has a little bandage with a heart on it, that when we hurt other people's feelings, we can take redos and make things better. So reminding kids of that. And then Lovey Dove, I already talked about Lovey Dove a little bit in terms of teaching the hope. Lovey Dove's going to be helpful if you want to read the story to kids about Lovey Dove, just about the fact that Lovey Dove also worries a lot. Lovey Dove also comes, and you can actually, it does come in the little popsicle stick one. Lovey Dove comes with Turtle Dove, her adopted baby, who she keeps tucked under her wing. So you can also have some conversations around what it's like when someone maybe takes us under their wing, or what it may feel like when like maybe you're the person who takes that student under their wing, and maybe they want to communicate how hard it is to not see you all the time, or whatever the case may be. So that's an opportunity to have these conversations. So the point of these characters is really just to open up the conversation with kids in this very playful way, and that allows them to tune into who they are, what they're like, what their needs are, that whatever they're feeling is normal. And on the flip side, understanding others in their situations. Like maybe I'm not like a cat or something, but maybe my brother or sister is. And I can understand that the reason this is so hard for them is because people keep telling them what to do and they're not getting a turn with their ideas. So maybe a way to approach, if I'm not like Kat and my brother or sister is, maybe a helpful thing would be to say something like, hey, I know that you really want to do it that way, so why don't we do it, your way once and then my way, so that the cat feels like they're getting their way some, and then maybe that would actually restore that relationship and that connection. So that's just the point of these characters. And then wanted to tell you that I'm starting to put together some free YouTube videos if you want to just send your kids to watching some of them. My channel is called Constant Love and Learning. I have one video up. It's the little kid version for the Bug. It's like basically me doing a lesson with Bug. So that's a thing that you could also show your students. So you can stay tuned on that. And then there's a couple other of my colleagues who work for Kimochis who are also making some YouTube videos for families and mental health clinicians. So you could also, and I have them attached to my channel, so you could also see who I recommend and get some extra resources that way. So I showed you all the other things. So to wrap up, over on page 17 in the Kotowazas, this is one last thing that can be helpful in terms of little phrases that you could give to people, to your kids, or to, oh, sorry, I'm seeing a note here. Oh, hi, Shannon. Oh, building blocks. We were at Seneca together. That's awesome. Lots of stuff. My tools that I use come from Seneca Center. But anyhow, back to our Kotowazas. Kotowazas is another Japanese word. I told you Kimochis means feelings in Japanese. Kotowazas means wise wisdom. So these are little phrases that are catchy phrases that can help kids regulate their emotions. They're basically self-regulation tools. So it's like, for instance, my family, my whole life, whenever I made a mistake or I was about to go into a tricky situation, and right now we're all in a tricky situation, they would drop these little phrases. Like they would tell me things like, treat other people the way you want to be treated. That was a common phrase they used. So Kodawazas are kind of like that, because even to this day, if there's something that like comes up for me and there's like some type of meanness, like literally the thought that goes through my mind is treat other people the way you want to be treated. They become phrases that get internalized because they're catchy phrases. So I'm going to give you, Kimochis has a ton of them, but I'm going to give you a few that can be helpful during this time. So hopeful is one of them. So a hopeful heart makes many things possible. Because kind of like somebody said at the very beginning, even though we vacillate between that hopelessness and that hopefulness, but having hope, and there's some good research on hopefulness, having hope can be, holding on to that hope can be something that can be helpful in getting us through hard times. The other three I'm going to tell you, I kind of mentioned them, but the mad Kodawaza is, you can tell them you can be mad, but you can't be mean. It's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to be mean. So to help kids understand that all feelings are allowed, but not all behaviors are allowed. It's an important, that's a helpful one to give to families right now, to tell them to use with their kids. And then the other one is the sad Kodawaza. We tell them sad feelings come and go, to help remind them basically that these things don't stick around forever. They may stick around for a long time, but eventually they come and they go. So sad feelings come and go. And then the last one is the brave one that I wanted to tell you, is just reminding kids to put their brave in front, which they are. They already are. You can tell them, you are putting your brave in front. You're getting on this Zoom call with me. You are home. You are doing this hard stuff. You are being brave. So reminding them of that to empower them with that. But we can, anything, courage is not something that just happens in a vacuum. It always happens with some type of hard to have feeling behind it. So reminding them of that. I see a question here. Started a support group on Facebook for families. Awesome. Do you mind if I post your YouTube channel and these resources? Absolutely, totally. Absolutely, you can. All the things that are for free, you can post anywhere. Yes, all the Kimochis Kodawaza sayings are on Kimochis. They're on kimochisway.com, the one with all the extra resources. That's where all those things are. And then I just wanted to say, like on page 18, the loved one, it's just that I wanted to remind you guys that because you are doing this work with your students, you are bringing them so many loved feelings. You are a huge rock in these kids' lives right now. And I just wanted to say how grateful I am for all the work you're doing with kids and families and colleagues. Every time you reach out to kids, anything you do for kids, no matter how small it is, that helps them understand that they are loved. They might not communicate that to you with words, but they do feel it. So thank you for all of that. They will, feel seen and heard through you checking in with them about their feelings. So the last thing I just wanted to, and I said we're all connected. The last thing I just want to tell you about is just some additional resources you can see on page 20. So you've got the two websites there, the Kimochis one and the Kimochis Way. And then on that top one is constantloveandlearning.com. That's my website. So I've got some extra free stuff. Each of the Kimochis trainers has their own business and they do expanded things for these tools. So right now you can see in my pictures, I have a free bingo sheet that's got a bunch of social emotional learning tools on it that you could give to kids and families, or you could do as a class and say, okay, let's all pick one and do this week and then come back to it or something. You can do 5 in a row. You could do the whole sheet for bingo. I also, you can see on the right, I have the free feeling reflection sheet to help kids. This is great for all ages to really help them think through their feelings. And then I also have on-demand courses you could take. So, and I'm not trying to be salesy, but if you do want more stuff, it's cheaper stuff right now. So just sharing, there's my one, it's the mini course where you basically get an overview of Kimochis and you get to learn about all the keys to communication. So that's half off. And then I have the full course. So if you ever are from far, there's a lot of people here from North Carolina and stuff. If you ever wanted to get more training, you could still get that through my website. And I'm also happy to meet with any teams virtually. If that would be helpful for your staff, I'm happy to do that. to hop on a call and walk them through some supports around these things. And then I wanted to tell you, I'll give it to Lihi to put in the notes, but the education director of Kimochis actually just launched her course for families, like a week before all this happened. And it was supposed to be like $297, and she's decided to give it away for free to families. So I'll give you the link. And so any families can go on and also take the course for free. It's amazing. So, and that one's definitely targeted towards families. My stuff is more for educators and using those tools in classrooms and schools. And then that's it. Feel free to drop in any questions you have. And if you don't have any questions, I would love for you guys to just put in the chat one feeling word you're feeling now about the tools you have from this webinar. Empowered, grateful, supported. Thank you, you're welcome. Relieved, happy. Thank you, feeling hopeful. Feel free to put any questions in there too. Thankful. I'm thankful too. I'm so grateful for all of the work you guys are doing out in the field, at your homes. Grateful and supported, hopeful. Any other questions, guys? And just so you know too, are you excited to work on emotions with your distance learning? Wonderful. There's some additional resources at the end of your slides from the UC Berkeley PD providers. So there's some resources for COVID-19 specifically, and then future professional learning opportunities. Let's see. Okay, will the link to the Women's Course for Families be in the follow-up email? Yes, I will give that to Lihi. You guys could Google it now too if you want. I don't know the actual website off the top of my head, but you have to look for the parenting. If you look up the parenting partner, Ellen Dodge, if you like type all that in the Google, you'll probably find it. It's her masterclass. It's free. You're welcome. Oh, you were interested in making YouTube videos for your students too. No idea where to start. Any resources and tips? I think that what I'm doing, and I don't know if it's the perfect answer or not, what I'm doing is I'm doing it as though I would be running a class, but without the interaction. So you can go ahead and you can, I'll give you the link and you can watch my bug one, but I basically said who I am. I said I'm here with Bug. You guys could tell the story of them if you wanted, but I basically said, like, we're here to see what's going on with Bug during this, you know, coronavirus time right now that we're going through. And then I basically, I had Bug's stuff in his pocket and I pulled it out and showed what it was. Like, oh, Bug's feeling scared, Bug's feeling shy. And I was like, oh, Bug, why are you feeling that? And I had a whole little interactive role play. You guys don't, actually, Julie, you might have the materials with you. I know I trained Julie before, so you might, but if you don't, what I would do is I would just take the popsicle sticks and you could do something like that using the popsicle sticks. Like, so you could do that. You can also just do a whole little show around like using the little thing here, like, oh, I made a little thing today about, and I talked to some kids about what they were feeling, and this is what the soup we made, or something like that. So if you wanted to do something like that with your kids, that could be helpful too. And then just go through the different things. You know what most kids tell me about what they do when they feel scared? This is some things that some kids have told me, you know, whatever. I work with some kids who have a lot of great ideas about this, something like that. Do we need to do anything to receive the links and recording? I don't think so. Lihi can chime in about that, but I think you're just going to get it through the email that you registered with.
That's absolutely right.
Okay. Awesome. Any other questions? You guys have some favorite tools you found? You're welcome. It was my pleasure. So, oh, and I also have in-person trainings too, so you can come do that too. I train, well, I don't know when the in-person ones will be back, but it's all on my website, but I will be in well, we'll see. Typically I train in San Rafael. If individuals want to come out and see me and get trained in the Kimochis tools, I do the elementary workshop and this mental health one there. But I also go out to schools and do early childhood, elementary, mental health, or parent education. You're welcome. But this next workshop I have, it's April 24th, is that right? April 24th, it's a Friday, and that's my mental health one, and it's virtual actually, and so you could still hop on that one. So it's a little different. Like my on-demand course it's pre-recorded, and you, it's basically the equivalent of my 6-hour training, and then it comes with quarterly group coaching calls where I would hop on like this and answer any questions and coach around them. Whereas the virtual one that's live is like this for 6 hours, so that'll be a little rough, but it is what it is. We'll make it work. And that one, it's not recorded, but it's obviously more interactive. And if you do want to do something like that, Kimochis is still shipping, like once a week, they're shipping out materials. So, because for the mental health one, for the AM portion only, you can also just attend the AM portion. That one is just on how to use the bag of feelings in therapeutic ways and the keys to communication. And if you wanted to attend all day, you would need the entire toolkit. And then in the afternoon, we dig into the characters, the curriculum, and how to facilitate small groups or push in support in classrooms. So for any mental health providers. So that's that. So there's that one. And then I have an elementary workshop on May 14th, which I'm guessing will also be virtual. So just sharing that information. But thank you all for coming. Any other questions before we hop off? Well, I'm so grateful for all of you attending. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, weekend, and that keep in touch. Let me know how it goes. I always love to hear stories of how it goes, or feel free to email me with any questions. Happy to help. Thanks, guys.